Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Aramaic Gospel channel. My name is Steve Conover, and this morning I'm having a difficult time streaming live, so I'll just record this and we'll get it done. As always, the Aramaic Gospel channel is brought to you by Amped Coffee. For those who need a little bit more than coffee, and a little bit less than cocaine. If you'd like to try it, just let me know. I'll hook you up. Cheers. But this morning, I've been trying to talk about the subject of the divine feminine. And it's a subject that we're starting to hear a lot more of on social media, on YouTube, and other places. Try to get comfortable here. And there's really good reason for that. And the main reason is that Earth has already entered fourth density consciousness. And those of us, those beings, organic beings, that are attached to her are gradually being integrated into fourth density consciousness. Now, this is something that's going to take hundreds of years, if not thousands, to fully integrate to fourth density consciousness. But the process that's currently underway, that has currently started, is the reintegration of the divine feminine into consciousness, into our expression of consciousness, individually and collectively. So, Steve, what in the heck does that mean? Well, first we have to understand that, or not understand, either way is fine, what the divine feminine is. See, it's not necessarily about a female, about a girl. However, it turns out that most female humans are much more in touch with the divine feminine for a lot of different reasons. But not necessarily. There are many males that are actually incarnated in a male physical avatar that have much more experience and are much more in tuned, divinely in tuned with feminine. That can be confusing. But what we need, really, all we really need to know is what in essence, what the nature of the divine masculine and the divine feminine is. So the best way to describe it is to talk about John 1. In the beginning, before the beginning in Aramaic, there was the word, the milta. Milta, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and manifestation of those is milta. And it's feminine. In Aramaic, a good clue of the feminine is any word that ends in the AH sound, ta. Also means that it's unseen. So before the beginning, the milta, the unseen thoughts, feelings, and emotions of God were with Allah, God, the one and only being, and were Allah, God, the one and only being. Then this feminine, unseen milta descended in vibration so that it could be seen, masculine. John 1 says in English that it descended and became flesh. In Aramaic, it's descended in vibration to become matter. Photon light particles vibrating in a way that they can be form. So in Genesis, before the beginning, it's the same conversation. The earth was dark, void, and without form, feminine. From the feminine, the form is birthed. Let there be light, photon light particles. Both scriptures are talking about the exact same process. So, also in Genesis, the Adama, humanity, was placed into a deep sleep. And the feminine, Eve, was removed from the side, from the rib of the Adama. And the word for rib there is really interesting. It's not really for this podcast, but it's a great word. I'm sure, Carrie, next time we talk, I'll have a lot to say about that. But so the feminine was removed in order to create third density consciousness. That's really what Genesis 2 and 3 are all about. Going from the Adama in second density was walking and talking with God, the one and only being, dominion, one with creation, not a care in the world. Adama was not paying to live here in second density consciousness. But then comes third density consciousness, the last 75,000 years, as Revelation says. If this time were not cut short, by the way, first and second density were millions of years. Sorry for you literalists that I just gave a headache, but that's the truth. But third density had to be a short and linear time period. As the scripture says, no one would have made it otherwise. It's not been fun. And it's not fun right now in a lot of different ways, because in what has been a pure masculine, and I mean pure masculine expression of consciousness, the one we call Jesus was killed because he was pointing this out to the religious leaders of the time and to the woman at the well when he said, "You Samaritans worship on this mountain form. The Jews worship in a temple form. Neither one of you know, Gnosko, what you worship." Just let that sink in. Two groups of people that knew scripture better than most of us. And here you have a Nazarite Essene mystic telling them they don't know what they worship, because they're worshiping pure masculinity. And then he tells them that Haya is coming out of that. It's translated in English to make you think that salvation is coming out of the Jewish people in the form of a man. This would only make sense if he followed that up with anything close to that, but what he followed that up with was, "My Father seeks those who worship in the spiritual realm, unseen, as reality." Divine feminine, divine masculine. That's what that conversation was all about. It wasn't about the sexual proclivity of the woman at the well, how many times she'd been married. There is a great, deep meaning to that. Her 5 marriages. And Jesus was pointing out that he, in fact, was the one she was waiting for, and worshiping the spiritual realm as reality. It's also the very same conversation as casting out the 7 demons. You see, until we get a really good grip on what feminine and masculine are, we really can't even read the teachings of the one we call Jesus and understand what he was trying to say. Because most of what he was trying to say has been translated and placed into a form, into a book, into a system of worship that is no different than what the Samaritans and what the Jews were worshiping. It's been repackaged into a purely masculine form of worship. And we've been given this fellow Paul to follow. Jesus prophesied about this and said, just as Moses raised up an idol on a tree in the desert, they're going to raise up my physical body and draw all men to it. But he taught that the way to the Father, the divine feminine, that the gate was narrow and the way was narrow, and that few will find it. So what has happened over the last 2,000 years? Most of the planet, a large chunk of the planet, is in some form of Abrahamic masculine worship. A smaller, much smaller segment of humanity has entered the narrow gate and are walking the narrow way by intimately knowing the divine feminine. You see, if you don't know the divine feminine as reality, you have no choice to walk a life of pure masculine, unbalanced worship. It's what the Samaritans were doing. It's what the Jews were doing until the temple and the city were burned down in AD 70. And then we were given a completely different form of masculine worship. The book of John was originally the book of the disciple that Jesus loved, or of the beloved disciple, which was Mary. And the name of that was changed in 325 AD when they created the scripture, for the most part, how we know it now. But here's the good news. The good news is 2,000 years ago, we were still in the throes of third density consciousness. We had been shown a glimpse of fourth density consciousness in the life of Yeshua de Meshika, the one we call Jesus. We were shown what fourth density consciousness looks like through his life, and what love looks like through his life. Which is why he said, find out what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Well, see, the Namosa, the law of man, the law of Moses, and sacrifice worked hand in hand. But the Oreta, the celestial, divine, one law of God, that we call in English love, requires no sacrifice. Doesn't keep a record of wrongs, so it doesn't need a sacrifice to pay for them. So divine feminine. The divine feminine is where you must be born from, born again from, before the beginning, where the earth is dark, void, and without form. It is from there, from that intimacy, from that portal, from that gate, where the Father can say, "Let there be light." And in a co-creative process, when you open your eyes and come forth from the darkness, can say, "Behold, a new creation." You see, here's a great truth. And this is either going to resonate with you fully, or you're going to beat your chest and rip your clothes like the Pharisees did. But that's okay. Either one of them is okay. But the truth is, if you can't see God in everything, if you can't see the one and only being, Allah, God, the Creator, in everything, in your expression of consciousness, then you can't see God at all. I want you to know that I'm saying this in the most loving way that I possibly can say it to you. It's the truth. It's what Jesus told the woman at the well. Think about it. You Samaritans and the Jews that worship in Jerusalem in that temple that they tell you God told them to build, neither one of you know what you worship. You can't see God at all. But my Father, Allah, the one and only being, seeks those who worship in, from, and through the spiritual realm, divine feminine, as reality. So when you're thinking about divine feminine, divine masculine, think about these things. Think about what you see as form and where that expression comes from. Because as 2 Corinthians 3 tells you, if it's coming from man's law, the Mnemosa, even today when the Mnemosa is read, there's a veil. And the Mnemosa comes with a degree of glory. It's the pure masculine form of the Oreta, God's law, love. But it goes on to tell you that we all, those who know intimately the divine feminine, and because of that, we know the Christ in us. Because we, with an unveiled face, stare into that, turn inward, and gaze into that like it's a mirror. The darkness, the void. And we are taken from one degree of glory, the unspoken presence of God, from one degree of glory to another, which is spirit. God is spirit. And she, spirit, she is the one that leads us into all truth, reality. The Father seeks those who worship her, through her, the spiritual realm as reality, and those seekers experience one degree of glory to another. It's the Romans 8 life. It is worshiping in the spiritual realm as reality. So that when we are walking in the physical, we are a walking projection of a balance of divine masculine and divine feminine. And behold, a new creation. Behold, seeing God in everything. Because you are one with me, as I am one with the Father. I hope this has brought something today. If not, that's okay too. Either way is fine. You're here for a reason. The experiences you've had have been to lead you to right here. Every bit of masculine contrast that you experience is the Father loving you in a way to get you to turn inward and be still and know that I am Enana, the I within the I, one and only being. I love you all. Make it a great day. Peace out.